And good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Camacho. This is Politics Unplugged. We'll be joined by Chuck Gray in just a bit. But let's start with the man keeping track of the state's finances, which puts him in the arena. And of course, we were talking about Doug Ducey. He has a long career in business. He was the CEO of Cold Stone Creamery and also chairman of iMemories. But this is his first foray into politics. So nearly 6 months in, we have to ask, was one of the few statewide elected officials who had not served in any political office before. What was your biggest surprise?
Well, the biggest surprise in terms of coming into state government, I think as state treasurer, you know, you look at what the job is. You are the state's banker and chief investment officer. So you look for numbers so that you can measure your performance. The first day in the office, I asked how much money do we have in the bank, and that is how we've measured how we're doing in terms of being the state treasurer.
Was the answer a shock to you?
Well, I knew that we were low, and I knew that we were in the danger zone, but I thought by setting up the website, aztreasury.org, as to the first thing you would see would be the state's cash balance, and then to work on cash management so that we could grow that number. In April, we averaged over $1 billion in the bank in terms of our operating account. So that's positive news in terms of a direction. We're still coming out of a deep recession where many have lost their jobs, and the economy is certainly not what it was, but it is headed slightly and slowly in the right direction, and I think that's good news.
Okay. Now, you talked about a steep learning curve as we're looking at the state operating cash balance right now compared from January 2011 to January 2010, and then also into April. You talked about a steep learning curve when you first took over the job. What exactly do you mean by that?
I mean, when you come into a job where you are responsible for $10.2 billion in assets under management, and in state government, a dollar lost is not measured the same way as a dollar gained. So safety is your first priority in the state treasurer's office, and then there's, of course, the responsibilities around liquidity to make sure the state and cities, towns, and municipalities pay their bills on time, and then you can look to get a return for the taxpayer. But you want to make sure that things are safe inside the office and there's not a chance to lose money in terms of bad investments or things that would be at risk.
Does it make you more cautious?
Yeah, I think you have to be cautious. You're dealing not with your money, you're dealing with the taxpayers' money, and this money's needed to pay for schools, education, and fill potholes. So yes, you do need to be cautious.
So you're managing $11.2 billion. That's quite a responsibility.
The size of the investment has grown. That's partially a market that's growing in terms of a stock market that's moving in the right direction. We do have tax collection has been up. The treasurer doesn't collect the taxes or spend the taxes, but when the economy heats up and there's more sales tax transactions that are happening, that will provide a larger operating balance, which allows us to pay our state's bills.
It seems like what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that we are improving as far as the economy is concerned.
We are improving. There's a long way to go. Over 300,000 jobs were lost in this recession. We were at trending towards over $10 billion in state spending. We've got that down to $8.3 billion. So the state has successfully tightened its belt, and now I think it's going to be about growing this economy and trying to create jobs going forward.
Yeah, growing the economy. At what rate is the economy growing right now?
The economy is growing slowly. Traditionally, we look to 2 or 3% growth in the economy nationally. Arizona, in a faster growing economy, grows faster than the national economy. In a slower economy, we're hurt. There is nothing you can do on the state level that can substitute for a healthy national economy, and that really helps lift the boats of Arizona's economy.
We talked about this before, just before we started the program, that a good indication of Arizona coming out of this recession would be if we get back to 2007 levels. Do you think we'll get back there?
I think a lot of people measure when we're out of the recession against where they were at the peak of the economy, and that was 2007. We are on an uptick and a trend line that's heading in that direction, although that would be several years away. We still have an incredible amount of vacant homes, and we have an economy, while it's growing, we added 17,000 jobs last month. There's hundreds of thousands of jobs that need to be added. It's a national problem. people in other markets that might be encouraged to move to the state of Arizona are frozen in their home because of where their mortgage is.
Okay, let's talk about the people who would possibly consider a move to Arizona. Right now, we're in the amidst of a lot of national controversy over the birther bill, over 1070, and all, Arizona politics being what it is. Have you seen any indication that that may have maybe had an adverse effect on business, maybe not necessarily in a negative way, but is stopping the rate of growth?
You know, I don't believe that those things have had an adverse effect on Arizona or our growth. You know, even through this economic downturn, our state has continued to grow. People continued to want to come here. I think people think of our state around the quality of life and the beautiful weather and the great events that we have here. And I think this is temporary political situation and some noise that in time will be resolved and passed.
Well, what about the education system? Do you think that's going to have any kind of impact? Because that would have a longer-term impact on not only a state but a nation's economic growth.
Sure, and I think the real big difference between government and the private sector is in government you talk about process, and in the private sector you talk about outcome and results. And I think education is a great example of that. You know, the question around education is, are the classrooms fully funded? Where if we're thinking of this from a private sector perspective, we'd be asking, can the children read and write in the 3rd grade? Are the children equipped upon graduation for employment? So I do think that this opportunity gives us a chance to reform education and get the results so that when people leave school, they're employable and they can go on to higher learning.
Okay, one last question very quickly. We have about 20 seconds left. Overall, you're saying that we're optimistic about Arizona's economic future?
I am optimistic. I think it's going to take several years, but we're headed in the right direction.
Okay, and we do have money in the bank.
We do have money in the bank, over $1 billion today, so we'll be able to pay our bills going forward. We won't have to borrow, and we can make the good reforms in government that will allow our economy to grow.
Doug, thank you very much for being with us.